Oh,
Couple of them. I want to be able to see anybody. So
They just don't have the cameras.
okay. Well, we're good.
Yeah,
Thank you.
it'll be good.
Nicole set us up. Thanks. Appreciate it.
Thanks.
All right.
We're
Okay.
ready, Your Worship.
We're ready. All right. Thank you. Appreciate that. All right, Council. I'd like to call this regular council meeting September 14th, 2021 to order with adoption of the agenda amended to include an in-camera item E. Someone want to make that motion for me? Councillor Charlotte, seconded by Councillor Brooks Hill. All in favor? Motion's carried. Thank you. Adoption of the minutes, the regular council meeting of August 24th. Someone want to make that motion? Councillor Brooks Hill, Councillor Charlotte, all in favor? Motion's carried. Any business arising from those minutes?
yes.
Councillor Elliott.
I think there was, Your Worship, a motion to allow free transit for those under 12. It was on the last agenda, is that right?
I believe so. I think it was in conjunction with BC Transit. I think that's most of BC's.
Yeah, I believe that is most of BC.
So to me, you know, I don't know many parents who let their children ride the bus in general these days. So I wonder about the effectiveness or what that might generate in terms of reduced traffic in our downtown core and less stress on our parking. So I'm really kind of troubled why or we sort of took on the recommendation of BC Transit when it's particularly ineffective. I think it might be an ineffective way. So what I want to do is make sure that they're monitoring or providing information, but we can make a decision based on what the next steps might be.
Okay, so we'll ask staff to make sure they monitor that and they can get back to us on that. All right, thank you. Any other business arising from the minutes? Seeing none, I'm going to go on to announcements from the mayor. Just everyone knows kids are back in school this week and excited. So just encourage everybody to pay attention to kids as they're crossing the streets and making their way to school. We've seen some changes with COVID-19 and the vaccine passport as of a couple days ago. Just want to let everyone know there will be updates regarding our recreation facilities, and that will be on our website. Where you can phone the rec facility of your choice and just find out what's going on. And then on Talk Revelstoke, the OCP has a short survey, so if people want to go to Talk Revelstoke and register and have a look at that short survey to give some input, I just encourage that. Moving on now, we're going to go to 9A, Development Services, OCP Amendment Bylaw 2297. I believe we have a presentation, so Mr. Simon, Ms. Wade, I'll leave it with you.
Thank you, Your Worship. We have just a short, quick presentation. So I will just share my screen with you. There we go. Can you see that now?
It says that you're starting screen sharing. We can now see it. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you, Your Worship. So we have before you today the OCP minor update that has come back from the August 10th council meeting. I'll just quickly run through our recommendation, background discussion. I'll make this short and sweet. Staff is recommending that the OCP Plan Amendment 2297 be read a second time and a public hearing be set. Just to quickly recap, we presented the OCP Amendment Bylaw number 2297 at the August 10th meeting. We outlined the amending bylaws. I won't go through each of these items. They are outlined in your report, and they're also outlined from the August 10th report. Council had passed a resolution directing us to decouple the Thomas Brooks land use designation for resort fringe on August 10th. That came back to council on the 24th. That amending bylaw 2297 was read a first and second time and is going to be moving forward to public hearing. We are now bringing back the second reading for the OCP amendments without the Thomas Brook Resort Fringe in it. Just to give you a quick update on public consultation, the minor OCP amendments have been posted on Talk Revelstoke. It has its own tile page. We've received 6 visits to the page on this item, and one concern about the heritage section, which staff has responded to and clarified, and that amendment is in your report today. And basically it is dealing with the heritage alteration permits, where they apply and where they do not apply. The minor OCP amendments have been presented to APC. We took it on August 17th, and the commission was supportive of bylaw number 2297. We also took it back to the OCP focus group on September 9th. They were supportive, and a formal public hearing will be needed for the minor OCP amendments. Excuse me. And so basically moving forward, staff are supportive of these amendments and are seeking support of council to move forward. I hand it back to you.
That's basically it. So staff or council, we have a motion on the table. Someone want to make that motion? Councilor Brooksville.
That official community plan amendment bylaw number 2297 be read second time.
And there's seconded for the motion, Councilor Charlotte. Discussion on the motion. Anyone have some questions? Councilor Charlotte.
Not a question, more of a comment. I really appreciate how this is an example of how the community, maybe, well, not a lot of people engaged. There was an important question asked about clarity of language, because all of these amendments have to do with clarity and making this a more workable document.
Right.
I hope to see more comments like that as we go forward to public hearing, and it's a good test run as we prepare for a more robust review of our OCP in this next stage. Because this document is supposed to help guide how we live together as neighbors. It should be clear, and it should apply to everyone equally. So hopefully by having these questions and getting these comments and being able to make these adjustments like this, we'll be able to find that clarity.
Good, thank you. Appreciate that comment. Councilor Palmer.
Through to the planner, when do we anticipate the public hearing?
Ms. Williams.
Through to your worship, I would go to the manager of corporate services, Ms. Floyd, to respond to that.
Through your worship, the public hearing for the OCP.
Correct.
Can I confirm that?
Yes.
Well, that's a good question. If we give it second reading now, we wanted to have the public hearing concurrently for both the Thomas Brook OCP amendment and this main amendment, which it could probably be done in late October or early November.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate that. Councilor Elliott.
If that's the schedule, the short-term rental public forum as well, when is that on the docket?
Ms. Floyd, public hearing for short-term rental, have we decided that?
Through your worship, we are planning to have it on Wednesday, October 27th. The province, I sent an email out to council the other day. The province has done some amendments to our ability to have a electronic public hearing without the ministerial order M192 in place, but we need to amend our council procedures bylaw first. We plan to bring the first 3 readings to council on October 12th with adoption on the 26th and then a public hearing on the 27th.
Does that create a bit of an over feedback or I don't know. I'm shocked that there's only 6 people on Talk Revelstoke. This is, with a population of 10,000 people on our OCP and our whole entire. Go ahead. But anyway, what I'm saying, I just think people might have a bit of an overload on public forums.
Okay, Councilor Charlotte, and then I'll go to staff.
I've been involved in the federal election over the last few weeks, and everyone is burnt out. nobody has capacity to engage and talk and volunteer or answer questions at this point. It feels like after a summer of wildfires and 18 months of a pandemic, we're all worn out. On the other hand, we do need to get this work done. We've all been talking about how this should have been done a long time ago. So I think it'll be interesting to try and push through. I agree, Councillor Elliott. I think it's important to try and engage the community as best we can. But I would not be surprised if we have low turnout just from people's capacities.
It's funny, Mike and I were talking outside about the election, and I think there's a sense of apathy and disengagement by a lot of people right now, and I'm saying, oh, maybe it's a risky time to bring stuff through, or it's an easy time to get stuff through, but whether it reflects the actual will of the population, I don't know.
And so I guess we'll just have to see how the turnout is and go from there. Okay. All right, Ms. Wade, you have your hand up.
Thank you, Your Worship. Yes, I just wanted to talk a little bit about engagement. First of all, this minor update has been before council. We really started this almost 2 years ago. What people want to sort of move forward is what my takeaway is from what I've heard. They're very happy with these changes. They know that these changes will help with clarity of the document as we move forward to the new OCP. There's been various ways. It's not just Talk Revelstoke that we engage upon. There's been pop-ups, there's been markets, there's been a diversity of ways that we engage. Talk Revelstoke has been very, very helpful, but this particular topic, because we've spent so much time on it, I feel the community is being quite supportive in regards to these proposed changes and looking forward to them. And when it comes to things like short-term rental, we have way more action on Talk Revelstoke, which we will be putting forward into our public hearing report. So you will see that along with the other forms of engagement. Just remember, we're always looking at things from about 4 different prongs of community engagement. It's not just one tool. Thank you.
Thanks, appreciate that comment. Any further comments?
No, it's great, thank you.
Any further comments on the motion on the table? Seeing none, I'll ask the question. All those in favor? Motion's carried. Thank you. Moving on to item number 9A2. Someone want to put that motion on the table? Councillor Gillette.
That a public hearing for OCP amendment bylaw number 2297 be scheduled in accordance with the Local Government Act.
Seconder for the motion, please. Councillor Elliott. Discussion on the motion. Councillor Palmer.
I'll be supportive of the motion. Generally, we should be actually putting a date on these, or putting for public hearings or these kind of things, so there's better understanding. But just in view of the confusion with COVID regulations,
yes.
I'm fine with it being open, but generally I would like to see specific dates and when we get to that place of normality.
I appreciate that comment. Thank you. Councillor Brooks.
I'm in support of this moving forward. I would like to see perhaps like some gap between the short-term rental public hearing and the OCP public hearing. Just if they're happening at the same time, I feel like we're not. Basically, I think the short-term rentals would overshadow the OCP update.
Okay, Councillor Palmer.
Through the Councillor Brooks Hill, good point. So I kind of share some of the concerns with Councillor Elliott. So even though we've had all this other engagement over 2 years, the lack of, like this was 6 visits on the page, is not really engagement recently. And so that's a concern. And then having that on top of the short-term rentals, which may be a hotter item. This OCPs are usually a very, very big hot item in most communities. And so it'd be a shame if we're losing public engagement at a much more active level. So I guess the question I have for Councillor Brooks Hill is, like, should we be saying, okay, like at least a month after the short-term rentals? And I don't know if the planners have any comments on the timing. We would like to get this done, but at the same time, it's some more time. It's just a question.
Ms. Wade, Mr. Simon, either of you have comment?
Yes, Your Worship. I just want to, first of all, I want to clarify, we're doing 2 points to the OCP. This is a minor update to correct things and bring it in line with legislation, which has been vetted. And it's been run through APC, it's been run through economic development, it's been run through the focus group. It's been well vetted in the community. So feel very comfortable with that going forward. There's a number of things in there that do affect other applications that we do need to get cleaned up. So I feel it's important to get this moved forward. Staff has worked very hard over the last 2 years to bring this document into the format it is and work with the community and the committees of council. So I do understand that it shouldn't be on the same night as the short-term rental, and I totally agree on that. And I think that separating it, I wouldn't recommend, maybe a couple of weeks if we could do it. It all depends on what Ms. Floyd's capacity is, and I would leave that for her to decide. But the sooner we could get this done, it would be important, just because we know we have applicants in the queue where these amendments will impact them, and we'd like to kind of move them forward.
Thank you for that comment, Ms. Floyd.
For Your Worship, we are happy to meet any requirements that council chooses, provided that we have the ability to do the virtual public hearings. We're concerned that if we plan for a in-person public hearing and something goes sideways, then it pushes things back even further, because our legislative requirements to advertise will have to start all over again.
Appreciate that. Any comments from council? Councilor Brooks-Hill.
I'm happy with a 2-week gap between the public hearings.
Okay. Any other comments, councilors? Councilor Palmer, would you be comfortable with that?
Yes, so through Chair, I'm comfortable with that. So I'll just put an amendment that the public hearing to be scheduled for 2 weeks following the short-term rental public hearing.
Okay. Is that agreement with the mover and the second?
Do it for him.
Yeah. You all okay with that?
Yeah, could I ask a question?
Sure you can.
Is there,
And I'll go back to council.
from the planning department, which is more important to have first, the short-term rental or the OCP? Sorry, I mean, is there one that more pressing?
Can I have them all? I think the short-term rental is appropriate to go first, and then the OCP following that.
All right, very good. And then just a point of clarification, so Councilor Palmer wanted to make an amendment. Do you want me to get a seconder for that amendment and we vote on that amendment and then vote on this, or how would you feel, Ms. Floyd, regarding that?
It could be a friendly amendment. You got approval from the mover and seconder, so that's sufficient.
Councilor Palmer, you have a comment?
So I guess just on further to that, Councilor Brooks-Hill did put his hand up to second that, I believe. And I would slightly prefer a formal.
Okay.
And yeah, I have a slight preference to that.
Okay. So we'll go back. Councilor Brooks-Hill seconding Councilor Palmer's amendment, and then we'll vote on that amendment and then go back to the original motion. Is that correct?
The original motion as amended, yes.
Yes. Okay. So any further discussion on the amendment? Seeing none, all those in favor? Motion's carried. Any further discussion on the original motion? Seeing none, all those in favor? That motion's carried. Thank you. All right, we have that set. Thank you. Thank you, staff. Moving on to 11A, staff reports, Park, Rec, and Culture, Luna Legacy Project. Ms. Donato, do you have a bit of a presentation before we put the motion on the table?
Thank you, Your Worship. I don't have a presentation today, but I'd be happy to answer any questions if council has anything that's arising out of the report.
Okay, let's put the motion on the table, council, and then we can ask questions. Councilor Charlotte.
That the request from M. Manley of Arts Revelstoke to install a permanent work of art in the form of a full-size bronze sculpture of Isabelle Corsier be supported, and that the consideration be given to incorporate the sculpture into the design work for the Grizzly Plaza renovation subject to community consultation.
Seconder for the motion, please. Councilor Elliott. Discussion on the motion. Any questions or comments for Ms. Donato? Councillor Charlotte.
Just that I was at the Public Arts Committee meeting when this was presented, and it looks like something we would be very proud of. It fits with Revelstoke culture, looking at the strength of our female athletes in this community. I think this would resonate really well and speak to that and celebrate it in our downtown core.
Great, thank you for that input. Any other comments from council? Councillor Palmer.
Just a clarification, so the motion's a request from Ms. Manley. I'm assuming that that's on behalf of the Arts Revelstoke, so that's actually a request from Arts Revelstoke.
That's correct.
Yeah.
Any other comments or questions? Ms. Donato, any comments from you before we ask to put this forward?
No, Your Worship, I don't think I have anything else to add.
Great, thank you. Councillor Palmer?
Just a question, so how is this being funded? Like a full-size bronze sculpture, I'm assuming it's a pretty costly thing. Just how is that being
And so there is a letter of support in the next in correspondence regarding the Canadian Heritage Legacy Fund. So, Mr. Donato, just with that, it is Arts Revelstoke that's going to be seeking funding for this. It's not the city, is that correct?
Yes, Your Worship. The estimated value of the artwork is approximately $90,000. So they're hoping to get a letter of support from council so that they can make grant applications and attach that letter of support to any applications they make to seek funding.
All right, thank you. Any other comments, Councillor Elliott?
So there's no concrete plans that they're waiting for the funding before they actually engage in this endeavor?
Mr. Donato?
Through Your Worship, yes, that's correct. There's also the community consultation process as well. With a permanent piece of art, the Public Art Committee felt strongly about having the community involved in that process as well.
So they'll go up to the community as well. Councillor Palmer?
something that the Arts Council or somebody can take a look at on the supply of bronze. There's a lot of statues from a century ago that maybe could be melted down. Male gender statues, I believe. So
Good
point, Councillor Palmer. You might have to reach out and see if we can secure some of those to have them melted down, but I think that's a good point. It's the ultimate in recycling, isn't it? Ms. Floyd, you have your hand up.
I do, yes, through Your Worship. The request letter specifically states that they're looking for support for the Heritage Legacy Fund application. Ms. Donato, do you want us to amend the resolution to be all funding applications for this project?
Through Your Worship, I would stick to what they asked for.
Okay, thank you.
And that's in a separate item as well.
Yeah,
We're still on 11A, correct?
that's correct.
Okay.
All right, any further comments on the motion on the table? Seeing none, I'll ask the question. All those in favor? Motion's carried. Thank you. Moving on to correspondence 12A. Someone want to make that motion, please? You have a play school outside here, I think. So, Councillor Charlotte.
That'd be great. That a letter be provided to the Canadian Heritage Legacy Fund in support of Arts Revelstoke's efforts to commission a statue of Isabel Forrest in association with the 2022 Luna Legacy Project.
Second for the motion. Councillor Elliott. Any further discussion on this motion? Kind of talked a little bit about it previously. Anything further? We're all in okay about letter of support? All those in favor? Motion's carried. Thank you. All right, going on to 13A, Public Art Committee meeting minutes. Any questions or comments about those minutes? Seeing none, any, Ms. Floyd, do we have any questions from the press?
No, Your Worship, we don't.
All right, we're going to move on. I'd like to move in camera pursuant to section 90.1 A, E, and G of the Community Charter. Somebody want to make that motion, please? Councillor Elliott, seconded by Councillor Charlotte. All in favor? Motion's carried. Thank you. Thank you, staff. Appreciate that. We'll be moving council in camera. And we will